up, family? How you guys doing today? I did here with Milky Tech, and today we'll be completing our game development PC guide. Let's get this done. In this final part of the PC build series, we are going to install Windows, install some benchmark software, and test the heck out of this. If you guys haven't seen the previous video where I unbox and go over the parts, I'll have it linked over here. And if you guys haven't seen the part where I put the PC together, I'll have it linked over here as well. As you guys can see, I am right now in my brother's room. I have the PC installed over here, all hooked up. And now let's turn it on and install Windows. Alright guys, so the first thing we want to do is turn on the PC. And we want to go into the BIOS, so just spam the delete key. And now we're booted into the BIOS. It tells us all the information that we need to know. So we know our CPU, that's the correct CPU. Our maximum frequencies, the current temperature, the system temperature, the drives that we have, and everything. Double check everything. And make sure that everything that is connected is connected. Like we have our 16 gigs of RAM, we have our graphics card is connected, we have a Wi-Fi card connected, we have our M.2, and our no SATA devices. If it's nothing connected, we'll say NA. If it's connected, it will tell you what's connected. And we want to go into the bootload manager. F12, it should pop up here and let you know what it is. So now that we're here, we want to go into our flash drive where we've mounted the Windows, or if you have a CD, you go through that. Click it, and now it will boot via flash drive, which is our USB drive over there. Now that the Windows setup has been loaded, we select the language that you want to use. You want to select the time and the keyboard input. So now, since we're in the United States, we just keep the default settings and we just hit next. Now that we're at this screen here, we just hit install now. And now the setup is starting. Now we wait. If you have your product key, you put it over here. I'll do it later. Now that we are at this screen, we accept the license terms. If you want to, you can read it. You hit custom, and at this point what you want to do is delete all the partitions, reformat the partitions, and hit next, and then everything will be automated at this point. I've already installed Windows. As you can see, I already have all the partitions and it's already been installed, but from this point on it is automated. So let's go over the system specification of this PC. Again, if you guys haven't seen the previous two videos, I'll have them linked in the description below. So this system has an Intel Core i5 9600K and is cooled by a Noctua NHU12S. The motherboard we are using is the Gigabyte Z390 Ultra Durable. We have 16 gigs of DDR4 G.Skill RAM. The graphic card we are using is a Gigabyte Radeon RX 5700 XT. The system is powered by a PowerSpec 650 watt 80 plus bronze power supply. We are using an Inland Premium 1TB NVMe SSD as our main boot drive. For our Wi-Fi adapter, we are using an ASUS AC55BT AC1200. And all these parts are living in a Lian 205 case. So the first round of tests we're going to be using is RealBench. RealBench is as close as you can get to real-world benchmark testing. It runs 3 different programs. The first, it will run GIMP, which is a free image editor. It is very similar to, let's say, Photoshop. The next test we'll be running is Handbrake, and it will be testing H.264 video compression. And then we'll run LuxMark to test the GPU out. And finally, it will do a whole bunch of heavy multitasking test, which is just a combination of everything above, running to load the system to its max. Here are the scores that we got. For the image editing test, we got a score of 200,882. For the encoding test, we got a score of 27,840. For the OpenCL test, we got a score of 142,844. And for the heavy multitasking test, we got a score of 77,709. With a total system score of 123,568. Alright, so the next benchmark that we are going to do is called Geekbench. Geekbench tests the OpenCL capability of your system. OpenCL is basically very similar to CUDA, which is basically parallel processing, leveraging your graphic card to aid in rendering or whatever kind of computation you need to do. The overall score that we got with Geekbench is 75,964, which is very, very quick. Alright, so the next test that we're doing is PowerMax. PowerMax is just a ruthless test that will test the capability of your system to its max. If you have any kind of instability or anything, you will know now. And of course, we had a very stable system with no crashes. So the next benchmark we're going to do is Performance Test by Passmark. This is another test that maxes out your CPU, your GPU, 2D and 3D graphics, memory test, memory stability and speed, and how fast your drive is running. And we got an overall score of 6,108.5, which places us in the 81st percentile, which is great. This system is not even overclocked on the CPU and GPU, so we have a lot of headroom and we are already in the top percentile. So the next test that we're going to run is PCMark 10. PCMark 10 is an industry-leading benchmark where we test the essentials, which includes web browsing, video conferencing, and app startup times. We test the productivity, which is testing spreadsheet, writing workloads, your basic office applications. It also tests digital content creation, which that includes photo editing, video editing, rendering, and visualization. And of course, gaming, where we test the 2D, 3D graphics, and physics. And of course, combine everything and test everything to the maximum. We got an overall score of 5,584, where our essentials got a score of 8,122, productivity 7,307, and digital content creation 7,965. And of course, we gotta run 3D Mark, and we're gonna run 3D Mark Spy and Firestrike. And this basically tests the CPU, the GPU, and puts a lot of load on the graphics, testing out DirectX 11 and 12 standards and physics and everything in there. And for Time Spy, we got a score of 7,976, and for Firestrike we got a score of 6,169. And finally, the last three benchmarks we're gonna run are the Uni-Engine benchmarks: Valley, Heaven, and superposition benchmarks. So on Uni-Engine Valley, we got a score of 4,449. Our FPS was at 106.3, and our mins and our max are respectively 26.4 and 201.6. For Heaven, we got a score of 2,548, and our FPS was 101.2, with a min FPS of 9.1 and a max FPS of 211.7. And lastly, superpositioning benchmark, where we got a score of 4,894. Our max FPS was 43.25, our min was 29.7, and our average FPS was 36.61. All of this are very, very playable FPS. Except for Heaven, which is weird to drop down to 9 FPS. I wonder what was going on at that point. And of course, all settings here are ran at the maximum settings at 1080p.